Un misterioso estruendo que muchas personas dijeron haber escuchado durante la madrugada de hoy se convirtió en el tema más comentado de las últimas horas en las redes sociales.
Sonidos muy similares a este son los que cientos de personas aseguran haber escuchado pasada la medianoche de este lunes. Durante la mañana, Facebook y Twitter se convirtieron en los lugares donde muchos quisieron encontrar respuesta a la pregunta, ¿habré sido solo yo? Los reportes de lugares como Tibás, Guadalupe, Curridabat, Romoser e incluso Heredia hicieron suponer que se trataba del juego de pólvora del cierre de los festejos en Zapote. Sin embargo, también abundan los comentarios de quienes aseguran haber escuchado los mismos estruendos en Pérez Celedón, San Carlos y hasta en Guanacaste. Por su parte, la Cruz Roja y los bomberos confirmaron a nuestro corresponsal Wilber Hernández que no atendieron ningún incidente relacionado con explosiones durante la madrugada. Uno de los principales temores en redes sociales es que se tratara de algún evento sísmico. Sin embargo, el Opsicori lo descarta de momento.
Sísmicamente no tenemos nada, los instrumentos no registran ninguna señal que coincida con estos ruidos. Sin embargo, en lo personal sí yo escuché como bombetas, como un juego pólvora. Ya si es de varios lugares del país, ya podríamos estar pensando en el ingreso de algún avión supersónico que rompa la barrera de la atmósfera y entonces genere ese tipo de ruidos.
Algunos a modo de broma y otros en serio comentaban en redes que se trataba de lo advertido por los mayas e incluso de señales del apocalipsis. Lo más curioso es que al parecer este fenómeno no es nuevo y no solo se registra en Costa Rica. Este video que circula en YouTube fue grabado supuestamente antes de un sismo en Colorado, y en él se escuchan retumbos similares a los que se reportaron anoche. El programa español Cuarto Milenio también habla sobre el tema. De acuerdo con los especialistas, al sonido se le conoce como el hum o zumbido, y a la fecha no hay una explicación clara de qué se trata. Lo cierto es que a esta hora todavía muchos comentan los sonidos en las redes sociales. Profetas, transformadores o algo más. Juzgue usted mismo.
There's been a lot of buzz over the last few weeks about strange sounds being heard in the atmosphere. People around the world and here at home have reported hearing some bizarre noises. The latest were recorded in the Battlefords last weekend. John Baglieri has more on the strange occurrence that could have a very logical explanation.
It came in many forms last Sunday night. To some, it sounded like trumpets. To others, a mariner's horn. Yeah. North Battleford's mayor says he can't explain it.
What I was hearing was what I experienced as possibly scraping.
Mike Halstead was lying in bed when his phone rang. Calls and text messages came in from his friends saying they too had similar experiences.
That's when the goosebumps got me, and I kind of thought, yeah, it's awfully strange.
Hey, 93.3 The Rock?
The next day, the local radio station The Rock got flooded with over 40 calls and Facebook messages, each person wanting to know what that sound was last night.
I don't think I've ever had a response that big about something, and it's interesting, right? Human nature, people just want to know what the sounds are.
It's now days later and the city is still abuzz with talk about the sounds. Everybody with their own guess, estimation, or explanation as to where they came from.
I've heard Jesus is coming back. I've heard that it's 2012, the world is ending.
This phenomenon stretched beyond North Battleford. Similar experiences were reported in Saskatoon, northern Saskatchewan, and parts of the U.S., even in Europe. U of S professor Jean-Pierre Saint-Maurice says there is a natural explanation.
Somehow they're picking up noise from an environmental antenna that happens to be there. That is electromagnetic noise. Nice natural noise, but really, actually, it's not a noise. It's electromagnetic waves emitted from the aurora above our head or emitted from the radiation belts a bit more to the south.
Maurice says it's normal and there's nothing to worry about. Whether a scientific explanation will satisfy all those people who say they heard something they can't explain is up in the air.
I'm Joe Quinn, and this is the SOT Report. In case you haven't heard, strange sounds from the sky are being heard all over the planet. From sounds similar to ship horns to what can only be described as loud metallic groans, sky trumpets, and even thumping, people all over the world are sitting up and taking notice. But what are we really dealing with here? To date, very little official media attention has been devoted to the phenomenon, and what attention has been given has tended to be dismissive of there being anything interesting going on. Consider this news report and comments by Canadian scientist Professor Jean-Pierre Saint-Marie.
Somehow they're picking up noise from an environmental antenna that happens to be there. That is electromagnetic noise. Nice natural noise, but really, actually, it's not a noise. It's electromagnetic waves emitted from the aurora above our head, or emitted from the radiation belts a bit more to the south.
Normal? Really? And what was that bit about these sounds not really being noise, but instead electromagnetic waves emitted from the aurora or the radiation belt? By that logic, we could say that when you hear someone talking, it's not really noise you're hearing, but the energy produced by the movement of someone's vocal cords that vibrates the air and sends a sound wave towards your ear, which then causes your eardrum to vibrate and send electrical pulses to your brain, which then registers them as words. While we agree that these sounds are undoubtedly natural, and that they could be electromagnetic in origin, they're hardly normal. I mean, when was the last time people all over the world were hearing trumpets resonating in the sky? Despite the approach taken by this Canadian scientist, we here at SOT.net think that these sounds deserve some serious attention and investigation by appropriate scientific bodies. Until that happens, however, I'd like to throw out a few ideas as to what may be going on. In the news report we just watched, Professor Saint-Marie suggested that people were hearing the noises as a result of an environmental antenna that is picking up radiation of some sort. He suggests this radiation could come from the aurora, which would appear to mean solar radiation, which could indeed be the case. On the other hand, there could well be some other unknown cosmic radiation that has, for some reason, begun passing through the electromagnetic shield produced by our planet, and which then resonates with certain geological structures, perhaps metals or other elements in rocks, and produces these noises. But that still doesn't answer the question of why we would suddenly be able to hear such natural electromagnetic radiation at this time. A possible explanation concerns the idea of pole reversal, that is to say, the fact that the magnetic poles of the Earth have in the past reversed and will do so again. During such reversals, the Earth's magnetic field weakens and leaves us open to cosmic radiation of all sorts that is normally kept at bay.
Scientists now know that the magnetic reversal that is inevitably coming will have serious consequences for our descendants.
There is also the possibility that the Earth's tilt or axial rotation may change slightly. Such a reorientation would have unknown, although probably dramatic effects for life on Earth. For example, some movement of the planet's crust. Scientists have no idea as to what causes the Earth's magnetic field to reverse. All they know is that it has done, will do again, and that we are overdue for the next one.
If things continue like this, then we could experience a magnetic phenomenon the Earth has not seen for 780,000 years. A complete flip of the entire global field.
There's really no question about whether the Earth's magnetic field will reverse again. The question is not if that's going to happen, it's when that's going to happen.
In addition, he notes that we would experience erratic weather, like snow in the tropics, for example.
The Atacama Desert in South America, a region known for being one of the driest places on the planet. But this is what parts of it look like now.
I suppose it's not surprising that among the public responses to these noises, many people are automatically connecting them to the fact that this year is 2012, and suggesting that these noises are in some way evidence of the fulfillment of biblical prophecies, or the so-called end times. After all, biblical prophecies repeatedly reference angels sounding heavenly trumpets that proclaim Judgment Day, which in practical and modern terms seems to suggest major earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tidal waves, virus outbreaks, and general destruction. According to Hebrew literature on the interpretation of the Bible, the trumpet sounding at Mount Sinai had 7 different pitches or notes, and the rabbinical literature speaks of the heavenly music heard at Revelation. For example, it is stated that at the first sound the sky and the earth moved, the seas and the rivers turned to flight, mountains and hills were loosened in their foundations. According to the Hebrew tradition, all the nations heard the roaring of the law-giving. It appears that at Mount Sinai the sound that sounded long rose 10 times. In this roaring, the Hebrews heard the Decalogue. The din caused by the groaning earth repeated itself again and again, but not so loud as subterranean strata readjusted themselves after being dislocated. When we read ancient texts that describe seas and rivers turning to flight, and mountains and hills loosened in their foundations, there isn't much room for symbolic reinterpretation. It is possible that some, or even all, of these strange noise videos are actually fake. Let's be honest, it wouldn't be hard for someone to record some video and then lay some strange sounds over the top. In fact, one YouTube pundit in particular claims to have debunked all of the videos.
So basically we have a hoax being perpetrated all around the world that started off with other people doing a couple of separate hoaxes. One of them based off of Red State, the other one actually based off of War of the Worlds.
Despite making some very good points, there are some serious problems with this guy's analysis. First of all, he only references 3 or 4 videos and ignores the rest. Secondly, he claims that the phenomenon started in August 2011, when in fact there are videos from as far back as 2009.
I'm gonna walk across the street.
And a very impressive one from March 2011 in Florida.
It's getting close. Jesus, Jesus. This is not good, y'all.
If we're going to talk about possible falsification, why not take it one step further and suggest that if some of these videos are being faked, then someone may well be doing it deliberately with the intention of ridiculing a real phenomenon. A phenomenon that may be extremely important in understanding what might be in store in the very near future for our planet and every person on it.
Este pavoroso sonido ha podido escucharse en diversos puntos del planeta. Lo llaman el rugido de la Tierra, un extraño zumbido que ha afectado varios poblados y cuyo origen aún es desconocido. Desde hace 2 meses, la tranquilidad del pueblo de Woodland, en Inglaterra, ha sido quebrada por este perturbador sonido. Desde la medianoche hasta las 4 de la mañana, los habitantes de esta zona deben soportar el molesto ruido que es similar al que hace un motor a cierta distancia. En el 2006, algunos residentes de la localidad de Auckland, en Nueva Zelanda, también escucharon por varias semanas este extraño zumbido. Esta mujer lo describió como una vibración constante que no la dejaba concentrarse en nada. Los investigadores no pudieron determinar qué era lo que causaba este sonido. Pero el llamado rugido de la Tierra se hizo sentir por primera vez en los años 90, en la pequeña localidad de Taos, en Nuevo México, Estados Unidos.
So I just woke up in the middle of the night and heard this strong humming sound, kind of like a
Diversos estudios llegaron a Taos para detectar de dónde provenía este singular ruido, pero tampoco tuvieron respuesta. Los que lo han escuchado coinciden en que se siente por las noches y que es un ruido constante y perturbador. Además, no todos pueden escuchar este zumbido que tiene una baja frecuencia. Sin embargo, hay varias hipótesis sobre su origen. Algunos creen que los ruidos son provocados por movimientos tectónicos o por los constantes desplazamientos del magma que se encuentra bajo la fina corteza terrestre. También se presume que podría ser causado por la colisión de grandes olas oceánicas contra los fondos marinos. A pesar de las múltiples investigaciones y teorías, lo único cierto hasta el momento es que el origen del rugido de la Tierra sigue siendo un misterio.
But you've made an amazing discovery, and it started February 21st, basically. You got an insight at the time of a blood moon, and there's a very famous photo that's been circulating around of a blood moon over the Dome of the Rock, an eclipse of the moon, and that proved to be very much a stimulus for your thinking.
Yes, it did. I was looking at that, and I thought the Bible had talked about how the moon would turn to blood, and the sun would turn to sackcloth before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And so I thought, well, the plain meaning of the text, it would be a total solar eclipse and a total lunar eclipse. So I thought, well, our government, NASA, the Goddard Space Center, has a website, and it lists all of the eclipses for the last, like, 5,000 years and the next 2,000 years. Because when God placed the sun, the moon, and the stars in the skies, he's very organized, he's mathematical, very precise. And they can determine exactly when they have occurred. So I went to the website.
Now, in Genesis 1:14,
yes,
when God put the stars in the heavens for signs, tell us about the Hebrew word there for the signs.
Yes,
okay.
the Hebrew word for signs is ot, and it means a signal. Kind of like one if by land, two if by sea. It's like God wants to signal us, send a signal to us, if we're watching the signal. And the Hebrew word implies, if you look it up in your Strong's Concordance, not only is it a signal, but it's a signal for coming or his appearing. And the word season, he also said they're not only for signs, but for seasons. Well, when we think seasons in our normal mindset, we're thinking winter, spring, summer, fall.
Yes.
But the Hebrew word is the moed, which refers directly to the festivals of the Messiah. It literally means a divine appointment. When we hear the word feast, we think food. But the Hebrew word has nothing to do with food. It has to do with a divine appointment, as if God has a day timer. And he says, okay, I'm going to mark the day and the time when I'm going to signal my appearings.
Amazing. You know, the idea of the blood moon and the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipses, down through history, many of the ancient profane historians, I say profane because they're not religious, okay? I'm talking about Roman historians,
Sure.
Greek historians. When a general goes out with his troops to war, there are oftentimes written in the history of this world, on a certain day there was a solar eclipse, the sun turned dark, and a certain night there was a blood moon when the moon went out. And these are time markers that help historians to find out when those particular events took place. For example, Flavius Josephus said that shortly after Herod was ill, some Jews got up on the temple door and pulled down the golden eagle and chopped it to pieces. Well, Herod was so angry, he had these men burned at the stake, and that night there was a solar eclipse over Jerusalem. So, you know, this is really fascinating that these are time markers historically and have historically been used in historical writings